Federal law requires ESPs to report CSE to NCMEC. You ready for that acronym translation now? All right. Federal law, specifically the Adam Walsh Act, which is a multifaceted law, has a portion of it that requires electronic and internet service providers to report any child sexual exploitation material, whether it's written, video, or picture, that they see to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That is called a cyber tip. So your Googles, your Microsofts, your Facebook, Instagram, Facebook owns Instagram, Snapchat, any of those providers see any child sexual exploitation, they have to report it to the National Center. That's called a cyber tip. Anyone can generate a cyber tip. You can generate one in this room. So, NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, clearinghouse for all the cyber tips. So they have analysts that will look at the tip, they'll try to geolocate it where it's at, and then they'll forward it on to the local ITK. So any cyber tip that has a suspect or victim or other interested party that geolocates to the state of Kentucky comes to my office. And we get about 350 of those a month, cyber tips. If you go to the cyber tip line, here's how you make a cyber tip. I put a big blue arrow there, boom, click that button right there. Just make a cyber tip line report. It'll bring you to a screen here. It's very easy to create. Drop down boxes. In fact, when you pull up that screen, you're already 10% done with the report and you haven't done anything except pull up that screen. So it's very easy to fill out. It's very user-friendly. If you see your kid on Facebook Messenger and someone is talking to them and you don't like the way the conversation is going, you put all the little details about that, including the person's screen name, they'll generate a cyber tip. I will tell you this, there's a little bit of lag on that because while we get 350 cyber tips a month, the National Center gets about anywhere from 12 to 20 million cyber tips a year. So that's a lot of stuff that they've got to process through. So if you were to create one in this room right now, it'll probably, within 2 weeks, it'll be in my office. So there is some lag time there. Another easy way to report is to simply call the police. I see some mama bears in the room though, so I'm going to ask you this. Please resist the very human urge to do the following. So in my scenario, you go home and your 14-year-old's chatting with somebody on Facebook Messenger. So don't converse with the suspect because that leads to you threatening the suspect because you're going to tell, hey, you're talking to, she's only 14, and then you're going to put a bunch of expletives followed by the all-important, what all parents would say, and it's very human, and I understand. You're going to threaten to kill him, but it's kindly against the law, and you probably shouldn't put that in writing on the internet. And that usually follows to this. If they're talking with you, guess what? I'm calling the police. Remember the video, this creepy video number 2 that you watched. If you've come across a child or someone that you're in charge of their care and you see that type of conversation going on, call us. Okay? I already told you I pretend to be a 14-year-old girl on the internet. We will happily come if the circumstances warrant it and take over that account. And then we'll chat and we'll see if we can get the person to meet us. And if they can, we'll arrest them. And then maybe we'll rescue a bunch of other kids that they're talking to as well. Because they're always practicing, right? We talked about this earlier. They're practicing. If you start telling them, hey, she's only 15, blah, 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 you're helping them learn, right? Because when you fail, you learn things. So they're going to start maybe running encryption. They're going to maybe start being very more careful about how they approach children, slow down, maybe, you know, so they're going to learn from that mistake. Plus, you don't want to give them a heads up that we're coming because we don't have any evidence at all. So, all right, let's talk about some preventative tools and safety measures. Would you all agree that internet safety education is extremely important? Okay, good. Would you agree that children and adults need this training? Right? Good. Fortunately, there is a ton of resources out there for us. This is the best analogy that I can give. When your child is getting ready to turn 16, you're not going to buy them a brand new Corvette, right? give them the keys, and say, good luck. But I think I can effectively make the argument that a smart device is equally as dangerous as a motor vehicle. And we give those to 11-year-olds every day without any education and say, good luck. So we do a really good job of preparing kids for the outside world. They all know the words stranger danger. They all know the words, use the buddy system. Look both ways before they cross the street. So we do a good job as parents preparing kids for the outside world. We need to do as much or use as much diligence preparing them for the online world. So the absolute best way to protect your child is by creating and maintaining open lines of communications. All right? So it is all about parenting. There are software programs that will help, but they will absolutely not, a software program alone will not keep your child safe. We talked about this already. Prepare them for the online world the way you do the outside world. Tell them about the dangers and the risks online. You can tell them you talked to this Bald State police captain today that said there's 750,000 bad guys on the internet that are looking to do them harm. And it's not that you don't trust them, it's that you don't trust those bad guys. And you're just taking extra steps to keep them safe. Again, they need to know that if anything online makes them feel uncomfortable or scared, that they can come to you or another trusted adult. They don't need to suffer in silence. You've got to establish a positive relationship with them before someone else does. You got to tell your kids you love them, because I promise you, if they run into one of them other guys, they're getting everything they need. Their goal is to drive a wedge between you and the child. So they're telling them everything they want to hear. So if they're telling them to love them, you should be doing the same. Some other things that you guys can do. Talked about it. We use the car analogy. There's all kinds of rules and risks and expectations. You need to establish those for the internet. You pay for the internet. You probably pay for their smartphone. That means it's yours. It means they have no reasonable expectation of privacy. There is no case law that I'm aware of that, at least in our state, that allows them that. So if you pay for the device, you get to look through it. Know your child's passwords, screen names, and account information. If they tell you they want Instagram, you're like, that's fine. I need your username and your password. That way I can spot check it. Price of doing business. You need to know what apps and social media pages that your children have. You need to know what it looks like. Especially the ones that have messaging capability. And there's almost nothing that doesn't have that. This is a stock photo, so I'm not saying any of these apps are bad apps. And the point for this slide being the presentation is you don't have to know what any of those are. You can do, remember the internet's got some good sides too, right? So you can do some research to find out what they are. So I put this up one time and everybody was trying to take a picture of it. Like, my kids can't have these apps. And well, that's not true. But you need to, if you see them on your kid's screen, you need to know, probably do some homework and find out what they are. Does anybody know what that one is? That's right. That's Dropbox. The number one way to trade child sexual exploitative material right now. So I'm not saying it's a bad app. I'm just saying it can be used. Anything that can transfer data, messages or videos. There's Pinterest. We talked about Pinterest already. None of those apps were created with a nefarious idea in mind. Again, they've just found a way to use them that way. So, Facebook, even though kids aren't on Facebook anymore, they're still using Facebook Messenger. So this is a very recent slide. It's tail end of 2017 going into 2018. So Facebook Messenger is still the most popular texting type app or communication app between millennial teens. So 50% of the teens use that. 47% use Instagram, 47% use Snapchat, over 31% Twitter, there's about 28% Kik, and 22% Skype. So I'm not a mathematical genius, but what does that tell you all? That's more than 100%, right? So they're using multiple apps to communicate. I will badmouth an app right now. There is no reason for your child to have Kik. None. Okay? That is an absolute playground for pedophiles and predators. The servers are located in Canada. They do not honor United States law enforcement subpoenas or search warrants without an MLAT, which is an agreement that you have to have between the local law enforcement agencies. So that takes a whole lot more time to get done. The bad guys know it because they communicate with each other and they know where to be. So when I'm talking about knowing what your kids are doing, if you let them play Call of Duty Live or Fortnite and they're unknowingly chatting with a predator, he may ask them if they have Kik Messenger so they can talk about all their missions they're going to do on the video game later in the day during the school day. And if they don't know, if they say, I don't know how to get that, then he can send them a link. And now he's moved them onto another communication device. Your popular apps overseas is the first circle there, and then here in the United States, and you can see where they meet in the middle. It's Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, of course. You see the paper airplane here in the blue dot. Does anyone know what that is? If you see that on their child's phone, that's another app. I told you there are only 2 apps that I'll really jump up and down about and say your kids don't need them, and that's one of them. It's called Telegram. It's a paper airplane is the design on the icon. It is end-to-end encryption. The message never goes through a server, so there is virtually no trace of any communication. Also on the secret chat version, you can send a message. So if I send a message to Jana, if we're both Telegram users, and I send one to Jana, I can put how long that message lasts from 1 second up to an hour and anywhere in between. And if she doesn't read that in a timely manner, I can burn it on my end, which means it never existed. Forensically, we don't get anything back from those. Consequently, that's why it is the #1 app used to communicate by global terrorists. So, therefore, your child doesn't need it. Do we agree with that? Okay. All right. So, joke slide. So we're coming down the end here. The periodic table of texting. Everyone knows what OMG and LOL is, but do you know what PRW means? So, no takers on PRW, parents or people are watching. Kids like to communicate with emojis. That's why this slide's in there. If you could get a hold of their device when you do, hopefully after I tell you about it, you do a phone audit on your kid's device, you can actually hit the emoji key down the bottom corner, pick the emoji keyboard, and it has the most recent emojis they've used. Kids and other people like to hide or conceal their device activity, different methods to use it. And they basically work in 2 main ways. So one are apps with hidden functions, and the other one is actually hiding apps from appearing on your screen. So the most popular app with a hidden function is what? Right. She said calculator. That's correct. Secret calculator. So it is a working, I'm not going to ask her how she knows that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's right, your students had it. So it's a working calculator. It will do mathematical functions. But if you put in a secret code, which the user sets up when they download the app, it's basically a file vault. So they can hide, they can put their diary in there. They can put pictures, photos. That's where the good stuff is. Even on the bad guys' phones, they all have vaults on their phones. So the way to look for it is when you see the calculator on the home screen, there'll be another little symbol out next to it. minus sign, plus sign, percentage sign, asterisk, things like that. Not just calculators, though. They're stock apps. If your child has 4 or 5 stock market apps, that's what the FBI would call a clue. So you might want to look at that. Unless they're big into day trading, there's an age limit on that. So you'll need to do a little more homework. So basically, this is an Apple. This is a way to hide, easy way to hide apps from appearing on your Apple device. You go to settings. You select the new screen time version. You come down to content and privacy restrictions, and then you're going to go to content restrictions. Then you're going to click on allow apps or here, and then you can say set the ages as 4 or 9 or whatever you want. So any app that has an age rating on it that's not in that range, it will not show up on your home screen. As soon as you go back to the thing, it won't be there. So it's even easier on Android. You just settings, tap applications, devices, tap the Alt tab, tap the apps you want to hide, and then tap disable. And then when you're going through your child's device, going through the home screen and sliding, you won't see the kick messenger I told you they shouldn't have. You won't see that showing up. How will we combat that? To build on her question, is there any way to get around it? The best thing to do is have one iTunes or one Google account for the household. All right? That way when your child comes to you and says, I need TikTok, which used to be Musical.ly, now it's called TikTok. All right? And you as a parent have no idea what that is because you're busy working and doing all the other things that parents have to do. You can give the greatest supervisor answer ever given. Let me think about that. Right? You can say that. And then you can go to do some research on that app, and then you make an informed decision on whether you want your child to have that or not. By the way, the experts say TikTok is for people 16 and over. Hugely popular with kids way younger than that. All right, but that allows them to randomly video chat with people all over the world. So you might want to rethink that one. But if you have one of those, you decide whether they can have it or not, and then you download it, right? And you pick which device it goes to. So if you decide they can have it, you do the iTunes stuff or the Google Play, you download it, and then you say, I want this to go to my daughter's device, or I want this to go to my son's device, and it just shows up on their device. In other words, they can't download apps at will, at their own will. Only allow the use of device in common areas. Does this mean they cannot still be groomed? No, but it's a whole lot harder for them to be having an in-depth conversation if they're sitting at the kitchen table while you're cooking breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and you're walking by all the time, and they constantly have to remember they're closing the programs. Then you can foster your discussion on what they're doing. Collect all the devices before bedtime. Monitoring software. There's all kinds out there. There's free, there's paid for. It used to be called Teen Safe, but I think it's Kid Bridge now. It's a paid for service. I'm not endorsing that in any way. I'm just making you aware of it. It's more of the NSA level stuff that I described earlier. Every text that your child sends or receives, you'll see a copy of. You'll see their web history, and it also has GPS location on the phone, so at least you'll know where the phone's at. Heads up, kids are smart. So if I tell you I'm going over to Johnny's house, I might leave my phone at Johnny's house, especially if I know you're tracking it. Because then you'll pull it up and go, look, Jeremy's over at Johnny's house, just like he said he was. Well, my phone's there. Doesn't mean I am. There are a lot of, I think, Verizon, AT&T, some of your other major providers also allow you to set limits on phones, on specific phones. The internet works from this time to this time, that sort of thing. Common Sense Media, when your kid comes and asks you about what TikTok is, you can look it up there. That's not just for apps. They have an app guide, but for all types of media. If they tell you they want to download this new album, you can look up what grade they give it, what age range they recommend it for. Smart Social, same way. They kind of have a parenting academy, like think TED Talk, little 5-minute videos. and they'll pick a subject to talk about. You can pick up a lot of good information that way. Netsmarts.org, that is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website. You can tell them how old your kid is. They have it by, they have little, that's where I got those 2 videos. They have a lot of the public service announcements on there, a lot of talking points to talk with your kid that are age specific. So if your child's in 4th grade, it's not too early to start. And they have little videos, cartoon type videos to do some internet safety with them. And when in doubt, a search engine can be your best friend. So I made this slide here. How can I monitor my child? That's all. I stopped typing there. And then Google has predictive text. So how can I monitor their computer, phone, text messages, phone without them knowing, Snapchat, Facebook Messenger, computer without them knowing, credit, iPad, iPhone. There's that credit thing again. If they're day trading those stocks, you might want to check their credit. I'm kidding. The only caution I'll say with this is make sure you'll get a return on any one of those you select. Make sure you look at the date that the article was written. There'll be tons of articles on there, but if they're 3, 4, and 5 years old and they're telling you how to spy on your kid's phone or look at something, that's not going to work anymore. The phone security's probably changed 20 times since then. So make sure you look at that. Most child molesters believe they're smarter than us. They abuse right on our noses. If we're too afraid to learn or too embarrassed to talk, they're right. So I hope I give you a little bit of stuff to think about and maybe shed a little humor on a dark subject, but hopefully you picked up something that will help keep at least one of your kids safe.